Daniel Ricciardo joining McLaren for the 2021 Formula 1 season seemed like quite the interesting move for the Australian. He announced he would be leaving the Renault outfit, having just completed one season with them, after a domino effect of Ferrari throwing Sebastian Vettel to the Lions, even after 6 rather impressive years with the team, and he would be replaced by the smooth operator, Carlos Sainz. Now, Daniel is renowned as one of the hot properties of Formula 1. He kept newly crowned world champion Max Verstappen honest during their time at Red Bull together, got the better of Nico Hülkenberg during their year at Renault, and certainly had the better of Esteban Ocon in his return to Formula 1. And we also know that he's definitely not afraid of throwing one up the inside in a way that makes Crofty lose his
The inside goes Daniel Ricciardo. What a move from the Australian!
So you think him joining the McLaren outfit that is finally starting to find some form under the guidance of Zak Brown and Andreas Seidel, paired with the ever-improving Lando Norris, would be a move that would only work in the smiling Aussie's favour, right? Well, sometimes things just don't work out that way. So we're going to take a look at Ricciardo's 2021 season as a whole, okay? Don't worry, we'll get to Monza, and we're going to answer the question, what happened with Daniel Ricciardo in 2021? Everything started quite well for the Honey Badger when he outqualified Lando at the first time of asking in Bahrain, and a very solid P6. But an unfortunate tangle with Pierre Gasly damaged his floor and would ultimately finish 7th, behind Lando, but ahead of his predecessor Sainz. Back-to-back 6th place finishes at Portimao and Catalunya, the latter being the first time he finished ahead of Lando, but then I don't think Monaco could have gone much worse for Daniel, really. Although, I'm sure Charles Leclerc might think otherwise.
No.
Now, we've seen Ricciardo around Monaco. He is sensationally quick. He even says that he runs these streets. But he just did not have the pace at all weekend. He was knocked out in Q2 while Lando went on to qualify P4, which became P3 after Ferrari's mechanical masterclass, and Lando would go on to finish on the podium and in the process put Ricciardo a lap down. Ouch. A string of points finishes at Baku, Paul Ricard and Austria was a decent return to form, but he was still convincingly outperformed by Norris in both qualifying and the races. I mean, again, in Austria, he was over 40 seconds behind Lando at the finish, and Lando scored another brilliant podium. So while Lando had racked up podiums at Imola, and Monaco, and Austria, it took until the infamous Silverstone race for Daniel Ricciardo to finish in the top 5. Considering the last race before the summer break was a 0-point affair for both McLarens, thanks to, let's say, questionable driving standards from Bottas and Stroll, this left Lando on 113 points and a seemingly unbelievable P3 in the standings, with Ricciardo only on 50 points, tied in P8 with Pierre Gasly, probably not the first half of the season he was hoping for. Now, the shambles that was the Belgian Grand Prix saw Ricciardo finish the race in P4, but I do believe that without Lando's monumental accident at Radion that saw his car resemble more of a Beyblade than a McLaren, Lando was probably on for P2, or maybe even challenge Max for pole, given the speed he had in the first 2 qualifying sessions. A disappointing weekend for both McLaren drivers in Zandvoort that saw Ricciardo outside of the points as he let Lando through in the closing stages of the race to take P10. But then we get to Monza. It was apparent from the outset at Monza that McLaren were right up there on pace, seeming comfortably clear of Ferrari and the rest of the midfield. And this came to be true, as McLaren lined up a brilliant P4 and P5, with Lando only 0.06 of a second ahead of Daniel, with both only 0.03 of a second behind Max Verstappen in P3. Now, Saturday at Monza involved one of the sprint races for this season, or sprint qualifying, or F1 sprint. And in the sprint, Daniel got off to a good start, finding himself in P3 after an absolute shocker from Sir Lewis, and Daniel also sending poor Pierre Gasly to downtown Milan. That was about all that happened in the sprint, but we can talk about those, let's say, odd additions to the calendar in a separate video. So Daniel would go on to finish the sprint in 3rd, getting an oddly large medal for his efforts, and would actually line up P2 on the grid for Sunday's race, after Mercedes put one of Bottas's 500 new power units for the season in the car for this race. This left the Red Bull Racing bromance of Max and Daniel on the front row together for the first time since Mexico 2018. Fast forward to the race, and Daniel got a brilliant start and was clear of Verstappen going into turn 1. And then thanks to the dirty air of these absolute aero boats we call Formula 1 cars, Max was never really in a position to challenge on track. Once Red Bull had a very rare mistake in the pits, this freed Ricciardo out front, and another slow stop for Mercedes with Sir Lewis allowed Norris through into what would be P2. Then we had Max and Lewis with their rather bizarre looking incident where thankfully Lewis was okay after having the Red Bull roll across his head and also giving him a wonderful view of the Red Bull gearbox. This of course brought out the safety car, and Leclerc made the Tifosi's afternoon by pitting under the safety car and coming out in P2 ahead of Norris. But Norris's sensational move on Charles at the restart quickly put an end to that pipe dream. After that, it was absolute bliss for McLaren. A 1-2. The Red Bull and Mercedes of Perez and Bottas not able to get close enough to attack. Now Norris felt that he had the pace to attack Daniel in this race, but decided it was in the best interest of the team to hang back in P2 and protect the perfect result for the team. And that is exactly what they did. Ricciardo took his first win since Monaco 2018, McLaren's first win since Brazil 2012 with Jenson Button, and McLaren's first 1-2 since Canada 2010 with the duo of Jenson Button and Sir Lewis. And the fact that this was the only 1-2 for any team in the 2021 season, frankly, is ridiculous. It was a brilliant weekend for Ricciardo and McLaren, arguably the perfect weekend. He drove like how we all know he should have been driving and can drive all season long. Now I was sure that this was the confidence boost that Daniel Ricciardo needed. He was back to where he knows he should be, fighting at the front and on the top step of the podium. So surely things get better from here? Well, not really, but not entirely due to his driving either. Ricciardo was P5 in qualifying for Sochi, and this would usually be a really good result. If Lando hadn't put it on pole and gone 2.1 seconds quicker than Ricciardo. I mean, even George Russell was P3 and 1.2 seconds faster than Ricciardo. But, to be fair, conditions were difficult on that day, so pinch of salt and all that. He did make use of the weather on Sunday though, pitting as the rain began to fall and flew through the field to finish in P4, only a few seconds off the podium. But prior to that he was nowhere compared to Lando, who seemed a shoo-in to take his first win, but
between Norris and Hamilton takes the lead of the race as Lando Norris slides off the track!
Yeah. And again, just as things were looking up on the back of that good result, there was a string of pointless finishes in Turkey, Mexico, Brazil, and Qatar, with only a P5 in Austin taking the sting away. But to be fair, Brazil and Qatar were reliability issues, so not really his fault there. Ricciardo secured a solid P5 again in Saudi Arabia, but then finished off the year with a disappointing showing P12 in Abu Dhabi, finishing the year P8 in the standings. I think to sum up the season, you probably used the word meh. For the most part, his race pace was okay, but his qualifying performances really hindered what could be achieved in the race. P8 in the standings and the fourth fastest car is an expected finish. But when you compare those results against his teammate, which is the only valid comparison in Formula 1, it really doesn't make good reading for Ricciardo. Andrea Seidel has openly said that the 2021 McLaren requires a very specific driving style to extract everything from the car, and this is something that Ricciardo is just having to learn on the fly, while his teammate is already well accustomed to it. Now I may be in the minority here, but I thought that going up against a seasoned race winner like Daniel Ricciardo would be Lando's most difficult task to date. He was bested by Sainz in their years together, and while showing some moments of absolute brilliance, think Austria 2020, he is still yet to come out on top against a teammate over the course of an entire season. Now Lando is a certified star of the future, don't get me wrong, but we've come to expect just that little bit more from Ricciardo because we've seen it previously, and he knows that he can do it. To finish the season 45 points down on Lando, being outraced and outqualified 15-7 throughout the season will be massively disappointing to Daniel. Will the win in Monza take away some of the disappointment? I don't know. Maybe. Now, personally, from my perspective, I was really disappointed with this year from Ricciardo. He's such a popular guy in the F1 world, and it's a shame to see someone who is a race winner, someone that can challenge at the front, and is known for being last of the late breakers, always giving it 110%. To see what I can only assume was his 110% be so midfield is disappointing. Now, I'm sure that given time, Daniel will be absolutely up there with Lando Norris, but in the same way that Charles Leclerc joined Ferrari and was instantly on the pace, keeping up with Sebastian Vettel, giving him a hard time, that was what we expected to see from Daniel Ricciardo. But more so, I think a lot of people expected him to be in front of Norris and really pushing the team forward. Was it the worst season in history? Well, no, definitely not. That award goes to Valtteri Bottas in 2018. I'm just kidding, Valtteri. But let's look at it this way. Ricciardo left Red Bull because he didn't want to play second fiddle to Max Verstappen. He knows that he's not one of the spring chickens in the Formula 1 paddock anymore, as much as I'm sure he wants to believe that he is. So he really can't afford to have another season of being so comprehensively outperformed. Eventually McLaren will start looking for other young talents to partner Lando, or if Lando was to move somewhere else, then they'd need two. Now, I'm not suggesting that McLaren are thinking of getting rid of Ricciardo after just 2 years with the team. I think far from it, and I think he will improve for 2022. But it is just something to be mindful of. Now, it's important to stress that there's absolutely no doubt that Ricciardo still has it. He still has the ability and the will to perform and put on a show for everyone at the track and at home. But struggling to adapt to a new car like he has done this season, surely that's cause for concern in 2022 with the brand new regulations. But then again, maybe McLaren's 2022 cars and new regulations will play straight into Ricciardo's hands. We don't know yet. But wouldn't it be brilliant to have McLaren and Ferrari back at the front, challenging Mercedes and Red Bull? We can only hope. So that's it really. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Ricciardo's first season at McLaren. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're new and want to see more. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.